Imagine walking into a hospital for the very first time. Your heart is racing, and the smell of antiseptic fills the air. Then, someone walks toward you, calmly and confidently, dressed in a clean white coat. Instantly, you will feel a little safer. But have you ever stopped to ask, why do doctors wear white coats? Was it always this way? Or is there a deeper story behind this iconic piece of clothing? Anyway, today we are going to uncover the surprising history and science behind doctors' white coat. Let's start with a surprising fact. Doctors were not wearing white before. In fact, for centuries, healers and physicians wore black robes, similar to what priests and scholars wore. Back then, medicine was deeply connected to religion and superstition. Treatments were risky, surgeries were brutal, and death was common. Black symbolized seriousness, but also symbolized mourning. Hospitals weren't a place of healing, they were often places where people went to die. But everything changed in the mid-19th century. During the era when science entered medicine, doctors began to understand germs, bacteria, and infection. Pioneers like Louis Pasteur and Joseph Lister proved that invisible microorganisms cause disease and that cleanliness could save lives. Medicine wanted to separate itself from superstition and align with science and laboratories. And scientists wore white. White symbolized something powerful: cleanliness, precision, sterility, knowledge, trust. So doctors adopted the white coat to send a message. We are no longer guessers. We are scientists. The white coat became a statement, not just clothing. But there's more. Psychology plays a huge role here, as studies show that people instinctively associate the color white with purity, safety, and honesty. When patients see a doctor in a white coat, they are more likely to trust the diagnosis, follow medical advice, feel confident and reassured. This effect is so strong that it even has a name: the white coat effect. Interestingly, the white coat doesn't just affect patients. It affects doctors too, because wearing a white coat has been shown to increase focus, professional behavior, and sense of responsibility. In other words, the coat reminds doctors of the seriousness of their role. It's not just a fabric, it's a symbol of duty. However, the story doesn't end there. In recent years, some hospitals have started moving away from white coats, especially in pediatrics and mental health. Why? Because for some patients, especially children, white coats can cause anxiety. This reaction is known as white coat syndrome, where blood pressure rises simply because a patient feels nervous around doctors. That's why you may now see some doctors wearing scrubs, colored coats, casual professional attire. Yet, despite these changes, the white coat still remains the global symbol of medicine. Think about it. When you imagine a doctor, when you see one in movies, posters, or emergency signs, what are they wearing? A white coat. It represents years of training, long nights of study, responsibility for human lives. That's why medical students around the world participate in a white coat ceremony, a moment where they officially step into the profession. It's not just tradition, it's a promise. So the next time you see a doctor in a white coat, remember this: you're not just looking at clothing. You're looking at centuries of medical evolution, from fear and superstition to science, trust, and healing. A simple white coat with a powerful story behind it. And now you know. If you enjoyed this explanation and love learning the hidden stories behind everyday things, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because the world is full of simple questions with extraordinary answers.